just like it.
Why? Why don't you like it?
What's up, Mom? It's nice to see you there. Thanks.
Conformity is experienced whenever we alter our behavior, personal views, and attitudes in response to the real or perceived presence of others. There are many reasons why individuals choose to do this, and social psychologists continue to research the factors determining conformity. Conformity may occur in situations in which there is a high level of ambiguity or conjecture. It is in the presence of an unfamiliar situation that the likelihood of shaping our opinions and behaviors to match those of others exists. Through observing others' actions, we become cognizant of the customs and accepted practices within any given situation. This is often done unconsciously and can be so gradual we do not realize we are doing it at the time. Among the reasons why we conform to group norms is our own lack of knowledge of and desire to be liked by the members of a group. This type of conformity occurs when we are concerned about making a good impression of others. Secretly, we may fundamentally disagree with the collective opinion of the group. Outwardly, however, we may adopt a stance that makes us appear to be a team player, rather than one who wants to shake things up. Deviant behavior is not always encouraged, and free thinking can be perceived as undesirable behavior within some groups. Our strong innate desire to fit in and not upset the apple cart causes us to go with the flow and do what we need to do to belong. These factors are a presence in most of our lives on a daily basis. A hallmark of a functioning society is that people follow certain accepted social norms, such as obeying traffic laws and respecting the property of others. However, conformity can have societally dangerous consequences if one automatically conforms without questioning the validity or morality of social norms. In the video presented here, a young gentleman is bouncing a ball while in a room with others. Before long, a second young man who has been watching this behavior also begins to bounce a ball. When number 1 starts to twirl his keys, so does number 2. Shortly thereafter, the first takes a drink of water, which prompts the second to do the same. This second young man wanted so desperately to fit in with the group, he decided the first young man's actions would ensure his acceptance. He placed ultimate meaning on the other's behavior, believing he could belong to the group if only he could behave exactly like the first. This young man could be feeling pressure or self-doubt, causing him to emulate the behavior of the other. The rules of conformity dictate that the more we want others to like us, the more we search for cues of and seek to give them what they want. In our daily decisions and behaviors, we should also examine whether our reasons justify our actions. In other words, are they sensible? When faced with a situation that is unfamiliar to you or outside your normal comfort zone, ask yourself whether the actions you are seeing others display are rational and appropriate for the situation. Before you thoughtlessly or automatically adopt a group norm as your own, make sure the actions presented are congruent with your own principles and values. Suppose you recently moved into a new apartment complex in a new town in order to take on the job opportunity of a lifetime. You feel secure because there is a doorman and a strict code of conduct to ensure tenant security. You quickly make friends in your building and discover that many people convene on the common ground floor patio for happy hour on Friday evenings. The gate is always locked, allowing access only through entering a security code. After a while, you notice the tenants tend to leave the gate propped open for non-resident friends to easily come and go during the social time. Despite the disregard for building policy and other safety, it appears that everyone in the group is okay with this arrangement. No one outwardly objects, and it has become standard practice. You wonder how often the gate is left propped open because someone has forgotten to close it at the end of the night, and how exposed the otherwise secure building is to the possibility of a break-in. You don't want to upset everyone by speaking up and alienate these friends you have just made, so you just go with the flow. Conformity does not always have negative consequences. For example, an individual entering Alcoholics Anonymous conforms to the group's accepted behaviors of sobriety and support. Practices such as regular meeting attendance and avoiding bars are norms that ensure the group members' success. These groups tend to draw power from conforming to the positive and productive norms for which AA stands. Are you willing to compromise your own opinion of yourself just so others will have a higher one of you? Ultimately, we are the only ones who have to live with our own actions. Take time to find out correct information and make good, sound, and honest judgments. Know what you stand for and determine how important it really is that these other people like you, particularly strangers. Finally, shift your perspective to the future and imagine what others will think of you and your current actions of conformity at some point down the road.
Hi. Hi. Would you like to donate to the American Cancer Society for Relay for Life? It's a wonderful cause. I don't know what kind of person wouldn't want to donate to cancer victims.
I really don't have the extra money this month, but I don't want to seem like a bad person, so I guess I'm going to do it.
Sure. Here you go.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too. I don't know how she could ask me to do this, knowing that my finals are coming up and I have to study or I will fail. But then again, I can't say no to my sister on her wedding day. She really needs me to help her go wedding, dress shopping, and I can't say no or I'll be a bad sister. So I guess I'm going to have to say yes and just study on the plane.
Say, for example, you believe Granny Smith apples are best for making the perfect apple pie. Your mother-in-law, however, thinks Gala apples are undoubtedly superior to making this delicious dessert. Your mother-in-law is not the easiest person to deal with when things do not go the way she thinks they should. You still believe Granny Smith apples are tastier, but you submit to your mother-in-law's request, despite the fact you haven't given up your own opinion on the subject. Congratulations! You've just experienced a compliance situation. Yielding to another person's wishes without changing your true beliefs puts you in a situation of compliance. In a conformity situation, the pressure on someone is implied or suggested. By contrast, compliance involves a direct request. Adults and children alike often resist direct commands to perform tasks, especially when the people issuing the requests have no real or perceived authority. The principal question they ask themselves upon hearing a request is, how can I possibly get out of this and not have them hate me? Fear of not being liked or accepted often causes us to comply with a request even when we really don't want to do it in the first place. People who reluctantly comply with commands often develop resentment towards the person issuing the request. This could be in the form of passive-aggressive behaviors, such as not completing the task as well as they could have, or more overt manifestations, such as social and emotional withdrawal. In one of the examples presented here, a young woman, we'll call her Melissa, was asked by her sister to be a bridesmaid in her wedding. While Melissa is honored and thrilled, she knows her budgetary and time constraints when it comes to her participation. In this video, the bride overtly tells Melissa she needs her to fly to Chicago and help her select a wedding dress, all on basically a moment's notice. She does not suppose that Melissa may not have the funds available to support a trip like that, nor does she take into account any prior plans Melissa may have made. Melissa complies with her sister's request, knowing that this last-minute excursion will cause her tremendous headaches. Why did Melissa give in to her sister? What kind of family roles and preconceived notions did she have that set her up for this situation? Well, one reason for compliance could be the implied role of a bridesmaid in a wedding. In our society, bridesmaids help the engaged woman with wedding planning, assisting her all along the way any way she is able. Melissa feels compelled by the societal norms she has grown up with and potential family pressure as well. Remember, the bride said, "I'd do it for you." Melissa immediately knows she'll feel tremendous guilt if she declines, and potential family fallout as well. Another reason is the bride's use of the foot-in-the-door technique. That is, starting off asking for a relatively small favor, then dropping a bigger one in Melissa's lap. She asked Melissa to be in her wedding, seemingly one task. However, later came the bigger request, related to what is now Melissa's agreed-upon role in the affair. A more insidious form of the foot-in-the-door technique is that which involves cults. This form of compliance consists of a series of small requests over a long period of time, gradually increasing in gravity and magnitude. Eventually, the individual's compliance is automatic, and thoughts of leaving the group unfathomable. You do not always have to know the individual eliciting compliance to fall victim to it. Advertising agencies employ this technique every day in order to sell their clients' products or services. Notice that the sales pitch does two things. First, it positions the customer towards compliance. The salesman has approached you in an honest way. He might even say something like, "Hey, at first I didn't want to show you this blender because it's the last one we have in stock. But you seem like such a great person. I want you to get the best deal. Plus, I really didn't want you to think I was pressuring you." The customer has just received a false message of integrity. Few people respond to these messages for what they truly are. Why is this? Well, as previously stated, we all want others to like us, and let's face it, we all want a good deal. This brings me to the second video. The doorbell rings, our subject answers, and is met with a young lady soliciting a donation to a charitable cause. No one wants to be perceived as cold or uncaring when it comes to a worthwhile cause, but in this economy, finding the money to donate is often difficult. Suppose the cause is to benefit the campaign of a political figure with whom you did not agree. If one did not seek out to donate anything, or if the cause is something about which they remain ambivalent, face-to-face solicitation might make someone uncomfortable enough that they comply with what is being asked of them and reach into their pockets. Perhaps this is because they want the situation to go away, or it could be because they do not want the solicitor to form a negative judgment about their decision to not donate. There are numerous compliance principles that influence the decisions we make. These cause automatic processes which perfectly set us up for a compliance position. We also possess perceptual defenses that prohibit our ability to process certain information. This is where subliminal messages come into play. These little nuances and hidden agendas that our subconscious picks up on and causes us to behave in a way exactly like was intended. Possible defenses against falling victim to compliance are information and communication. Had our bridesmaid in the first video armed herself with ways she could avoid feeling guilty for not complying with her sister's command, and perhaps facts about how much the trip would really cost her, and alternate shopping avenues, she might have avoided complying with an unreasonable demand. The second video's subject could have kindly explained that she would love to donate to the cause, but funds did not allow her to at this time. Asking questions like, "Do you have information for anyone I can contact when I have available money to give?" Or exhibiting simple honesty such as, "I'm sorry, I support the opposing candidate, but best of luck in the election," would go a long way in diffusing a potentially compliant situation.
Alright guys, so I called the staff meeting to alert you of an important policy change in effect immediately. Our pharmaceutical supplier has agreed to compensate us based on the number of prescriptions that we fill and give to the patients. So from here on out, all patients will be given medication X, whether or not it's needed. Do you guys have a problem with this? This is going to be in effect immediately. So I'm saying every patient's going to get this medication, whether or not they need it. Do you have a problem? Is that
No.
okay? Okay.
Be quiet. Sit down. How often have you heard these phrases or something like them? We hear or come across commands, instructions, and directions every day from our parents, our bosses, and sometimes even our friends. What is it that makes us obey or disobey these directives? Obedience is defined as a form of social influence in which an individual acts in response to a direct order from another individual, who is usually an authority figure. It is assumed that without such an order, the person would not behave this way. Stanley Milgram's experiment illustrated the very human struggle between staying true to what one knows is right and the tendency to obey an authoritative command. His method involved testing whether or not his subjects would willingly administer electric shocks on a subject whenever an incorrect answer was given. Shockingly, the subjects chose to deliver the shocks regardless of any unspoken objection, even though the authority figure had no real power over them. In Nazi Germany during the 1930s and 40s, millions of people were killed in concentration camps under the directions of Adolf Hitler. While it was the dictator's mission in life to do so, Hitler could not have carried on these heinous acts alone, nor could merely a handful of his loyalists. The Nazi regime consisted of an elite group of German soldiers specifically trained to carry out Hitler's orders to exterminate every Jewish person in the world. What made all these people follow the extreme orders they were given? Did they genuinely believe in the hateful genocide Hitler wanted to inflict? Were they afraid, or was there something in their personality that made them more susceptible to obedience, regardless of any internal objection? In order to obey authority, the obedient person has to accept that it is legitimate, i.e., rightful and legal, for the command to be made of them. In other words, they must feel as though the commanding person holds enough power over them to where they have no choice but to do as they are told. While conformity happens through social pressures, obedience involves a hierarchy of power or status. This is commonly seen in the workplace, in the military, at the home between parents and children, and anywhere a chain of command exists. Basically, an individual is told to do something by someone with authority over them, and they feel compelled to carry out the order due to some perceived threat or fear of negative consequence. As children, we are told to mind our manners, eat our vegetables, and pick up our toys. When we do not, there is usually some form of punishment exacted. We grow up learning the lesson that bad behavior to an authority figure will not be tolerated, and there is a price to pay. These social contracts stay with us after childhood and throughout our lives, influencing how we behave and feel towards authority later on in life. In the example shown in the video here, a senior member of a physician's practice instructs the staff of a new policy concerning medication samples. The employees are told that one of their drug representatives has offered enticing incentives for every sample of a certain medication that is dispensed. Because these extra benefits are too lucrative to pass up, the office manager insists every patient be given a sample of the drug, whether or not it is relative to their treatment or medical needs. The incentives do not involve patients to actually take the medication, only that it be passed on to them at the conclusion of their appointments. The employees in this video are unsure of what to say or do. They appear to comprehend the directive imposed upon them, and although they are most likely morally in disagreement with this practice, they feel as though they have no choice but to obey their boss. Because they have been conditioned to obey authority or suffer consequences, they subsequently offer the drug to every patient in the practice. Had just one of the employees spoken out and refused, the likelihood exists that the other would follow. The old saying, "There is strength in numbers," rings true, as people are more inclined to challenge immoral standards if someone else is willing to stand with them in solidarity.